Welcome everyone to Monday Match Analysis. This is the 2023 Australian Open preview. Doesn't this feel great? Isn't this a fantastic feeling of anticipation and excitement as we start 2023 off with a bang, as we do every single year at the Happy Slam in Melbourne? I love it. If you're new to the channel, I am going to break this draw down quarter by quarter, giving you all the top seeds, giving you a dark horse, which is an unseeded player most likely to make a run, an upset alert, which is a seeded player most likely to lose early, a popcorn match, which is a first or second round match that I believe everybody should watch and be very excited about, and finally a quarterfinal prediction. And then after I just run through those, I'll give some general thoughts on the quarter. All right. Any general thoughts? Okay. Court speed. This is quick. I actually think it's more about the ball than it is the surface itself. Maybe it's both, but we've seen throughout this entire 2-week Australian swing, if you want to even call it that the Australian Open Dunlop tennis ball plays really light and fast through the air, and it makes for quick conditions. So we've kind of reached a point where the Australian Open and the U.S. Open, they're not that different anymore. You know, the U.S. Open used to be slow, the Aussie used to be fast, and now they're both pretty fast, which is, it's reasonable. None of them are like at Turin level where nobody can break serve. The other thing I want to mention just before we get into the first quarter, which is Rafael Nadal's quarter, is that everybody's fresh this time of year, and I think we just see less upsets. Now, there's a smaller sample size of matches, so, guys change over the offseason, and there are, in some ways, it's more difficult to make predictions because you don't really have any results to go off of. In many cases, guys have played 1 or 2 matches, so you just don't really know what they're going to look like for the remainder of the year. But that said, if you go year by year by year and you look at Australian Open, men's quarters and men's semifinals, compared to a Wimbledon or a US Open, there are simply less surprises. And I think that's just because guys are healthy and everybody's kind of fresh and in a good place. So the talent, the cream rises to the top, to use a cliche. All right, there's our beautiful thumbnail. And let's go to Rafael Nadal's quarter. Top seeds are Nadal, Medvedev, Hurkacz, Tiafoe, Khachanov, Shapovalov, Korda, Nishioka. I feel like this is going to be the most exciting quarter to watch play out if I had to choose one. My dark horse here, I have 2 of them, and I'm going to have I think I have a lot of dark horses for the Australian Open, more than usual, because, again, there's a lot of players who I feel like just have a lot of potential in my mind at this time of year, because there hasn't been any time for them to either A, get seeded, or B, prove to me that I'm too high on them and they aren't dark horses. Anyway, Marc-Andre Huesler, who won Sofia last year on the indoor hard courts. He is a left-hander with a big serve, a good forehand, who likes to come forward. He's on the bottom half of the draw, right? A potential second-round opponent for Medvedev, and I think he's pretty scary. Medvedev's good against lefties with the fantastic backhand, but I think Huesler is a dark horse here. The second dark horse is Brandon Nakashima. We are going to get to Nadal's kind of section of the draw with Draper and Nakashima. But I was kind of going back and forth between Draper and Nakashima. I'm like, all right, Gill, you can't choose 3 dark horses. So I picked Nakashima mostly because he doesn't have to play Nadal or Draper in the first round. So that's a huge advantage for a dark horse in Nakashima. Mackie McDonald in the first round for Brandon. But this is a young player who has very, very few holes in his game. The biggest thing is probably that his forehand is not elite. He's got a really good backhand, which helps against the lefties that he would face in the, the heavy topspin forehand lefties that he would face in the second round. Granted, Nadal's forehand is a lot better than Draper's. So Nakashima, who won the Next Gen Finals at the end of last year, which, by the way, has historically meant that they're going to go on a huge Australian Open run. I mean, Tsitsipas did that. Chung did that. And there might be other examples that I'm missing. Nakashima, no-brainer here for a dark horse. Upset alert, I have Hurkacz and Nadal. For Nadal, I'm going to get into it in more depth. I mean, it's the draw. It's the draw. I did not know coming into this tournament that I would put Nadal on upset alert. I know that he's 0-2. I know that he's lost something crazy, like 7 out of his last... I should have the number exactly, and I'm going off of secondhand, but he's lost something like 7 out of his last 9. Really kind of a damning number or something along those lines. And then Hurkacz. Hurkacz is in his head at these majors. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And when Hubie gets in his head, here's the problem. He plays a lot of close matches. That's just the nature of the beast with him and as a player. He's a huge server, but he's not a great baseliner. So good players are able to hold serve against Hurkacz, and you end up playing tie breaks. And man, it's just over and over again. Hurkacz is just not coming through under pressure at majors because I think he is feeling a lot of pressure. I don't know how else to put it or what other words to use. He's feeling a ton of pressure at these majors because he has not performed. He had that one run at Wimbledon. He made the Wimbledon semifinal. I don't think he's been past the third round at a hard court major. In fact, I'm positive he has not been past a third round at a hard court major. Draw-wise for Hurkacz, he's got Pedro Martinez. That's pretty favorable. But in the second round, he could play Lorenzo Sonego, who is not favorable. That's a borderline top 30 player and someone who beat Hurkacz last fall. I think it was Metz. I think he's beaten him twice. Good and best of 5, relatively. Sonego. Nuno Borges, potentially. Borges is a good ball striker, but I don't know. I think Sonego will win. So that's that. Those are the upset alerts. Early popcorn matches, Nadal versus Draper in round 1. Kind of a no-brainer here. That's an enormous match. I can't wait to watch that match. I'm going to talk more about it in a moment. Before I do that, let me reveal my quarterfinal. My quarterfinal here is Daniil Medvedev defeating Rafael Nadal. All right, a couple of things here. Let's start with Nadal, who I have on upset alert, but ultimately I do not think is going to be upset. You got to understand, I have to explain this sometimes, that just because a player is on upset alert, that just means I think they're in danger in the first 2 rounds. That doesn't mean I am picking the upset. In some cases I am, in which case I usually say so. Anyway, let's just talk about this quarter in general. Here's my outlook on Nadal. I don't think he played that badly at United Cup, but I have 2 major concerns. The serve, which just has to be better. It has to be better or he's going to lose. And the confidence. And I think the confidence doesn't come into play until Nadal plays a really, really great opponent and he's pushed kind of deep into tight scoreboard situations and he needs to execute offensive tennis. That's where the confidence comes into play. I don't think that Nadal, as we saw last year at the US Open, goes into a first round match against a guy like Rinky Hijikata or plays a guy like Richard Gasquet. I don't think the confidence comes into play there. He's fine. But it's when he's getting pushed and he's in trouble and there's adversity and he needs to go after his shots. That's where that matters. So those are my concerns. But I kind of talk myself into picking Nadal both against Draper and Nakashima. Draper, tactically, forehand to forehand, I really like Nadal there. I just think Draper's cross-court forehand to Nadal's forehand, I really like Nadal in that pattern. I just think Nadal's forehand is bigger and more penetrating, and I think he goes down the line better. So I really like that pattern. If Draper keeps winning in Auckland, that is not good for Jack. Now, it might be good for his career. Like, if he wins a title, I always say this. It's good for a player's career to win, a young player to win titles, period. But is that good for the Nadal match? No, it means he has to travel on a Sunday. I'm not sure if that match is going to be Monday or Tuesday in Australia, but it means he needs to travel on a Sunday and maybe practice once in Melbourne, if that, and you have the fatigue factor. Like, look what happened to Kokkinakis last year. He won Adelaide, lost first round at the Australian Open. Look what happened to Sinner a couple years ago. He won Adelaide and he lost first round at the Australian Open. It's not good to go deep the week before a major. Look at how Winston-Salem champions do at the US Open. It's not good. So that's something to keep in mind with Draper. The other thing is intangibles. Look, I think Draper has handled big matches super, super, super well. Djokovic center court at Wimbledon, as a young British kid to play the first match on center court, and he wins the first set. That impressed me. He has big wins. Tsitsipas in Canada, Felix at the US Open. It's impressive. So, look, I really like the kid mentally, but from an intangibles perspective, like, this is a little bit different. This is Nadal, who's his idol, Rod Laver Arena, best of 5 sets. Intangibles-wise, I still like Nadal. Then Nakashima. Nakashima's an American with a good backhand. Americans with good backhands just keep beating Nadal. Why can't I, actually pull the trigger on this upset? Nakashima's 0-5 against top 10 players, 2-11 versus top 20 players in his career. Look, that stuff's going to change. I have a lot of faith in him as a player, and, I think he's going to do a lot of really great things. But, right now, am I ready to pull the trigger on that? No. I ultimately think Nadal's going to have a good level here. But I think he will get broken down by these battles at a certain point. In the bottom eighth, and let me make a quick point about Draper and Nakashima. Both of them, I would be stunned if they're not both seeded by the US Open, if not Wimbledon. I think they're both seeded by Wimbledon or the US Open. And that's why this draw is so awful for Nadal, because these guys are probably both top 30 players, and they're just not there yet in the rankings. It's tough. All right. Bottom eighth, Nadal will probably have to play Tiafoe. I'm sure, it'd be more favorable for him to play Khachanov. You have Oscar Otte in here. He's kind of tricky, but out of form. Kubler is another candidate to come out of that bottom eighth if it's not going to be Khachanov or Tiafoe. Kubler's talented. He's an Aussie. And that's all I got. No more comments. Let's go to Medvedev's half. Giron is going to be kind of a grind fest to open. I mentioned Husler's kind of dangerous, but I don't think his forehand is really consistent enough at this point in time. Korda is also in the area as a seeded player. I don't really trust Korda at this time. I think he's dangerous, but I also think he's kind of upset prone because of his up and down ground stroke consistency. I'll put it that way. Now, in the bottom half, you have a lot of interesting things, or the bottom eighth of this quarter. You have a lot of interesting things going on with matchups. Hurkacz is on upset alert for me. I kind of think that Sonego clips him. I kind of feel that way. But if he doesn't, Shapovalov, Hurkacz, that's a good matchup for Hurkacz. Because he has all that pace to work with, and he can just counterpunch, which is what he's good at and what he wants to do. And Shapovalov's return of serve isn't great. So that's a good matchup. And then Medvedev-Hurkacz. Oh boy, we could get Medvedev-Hurkacz in the 4th round. It's a terrible matchup for Daniil. Daniil has never beaten Hubert Hurkacz comfortably. In his career, he has never beaten Hurkacz comfortably. And what's the overall head-to-head? I think it's 3-2 Hubie. Hurkacz got him at Wimbledon. So it's really rough. But ultimately, I think that's a lot to go right for Hurkacz, to avoid the upset, to beat Shapo, to beat Medvedev. Don't really see it with I don't have that faith in Hurkacz at all right now, actually, like mentally with the forehand. So ultimately, I have Medvedev coming away with this. I think he matches up really well with Korda. I think he matches up very well with Shapovalov. Again, these are two guys who they don't have they don't have amazing speed, and they don't have amazing defense. Shapo's actually really fast. They don't have amazing defense, and they don't have amazing net play. Although Shapovalov can be kind of tricky, I think, with his net play. Korda's got good volleys, but he doesn't come up too often. So, that kind of erases that. All right, enough blabbering on the first quarter. I'm probably going to go quicker for the remainder of this, but I wanted to go really in depth because, again, this is the most exciting quarter. This is the highest quality quarter. You can make an argument for more guys making the semis in this quarter than you can any other. You have an argument for Nadal, Medvedev, Hurkacz, Tiafoe, who I didn't really even cover here, Shapovalov, and Korda, which is pretty incredible. And then you have two of the best unseeded players, in my opinion, in Husler, Nakashima, and Draper. I just think quarters don't get much better than this, honestly. And Medvedev's 8th is even stronger than Nadal's 8th. That's how good it is. Wow. Can't wait. As I said, though, I won't go that long on all the quarters. Stefanos Tsitsipas' quarter. The top seeds are Tsitsipas, FAA, Norrie, Sinner, Musetti, Coric, Cerundolo, and Botic van de Zandschulp, BVDZ, as I have it abbreviated in the graphic. My dark horses here are Yuri Lehechka and Yibing Wu. Lehechka is a guy who is young, and you never know kind of what's going to happen in the offseason with these young guys coming into Australia. Got to win over Alexander Zverev. I don't think that's the biggest deal in the world, but I think everybody's just in agreement about Lehechka. He's not like this crazy special talent. He's not going to knock your socks off or blow you away, but he's damn solid. He's a good player. He's going to be a top 30 guy. It's just a matter of, does he do it this year, next year, maybe the year after, but I think by 2020, what are we doing with the math here? I think by the start of 2025, Lehechka's top 30. So yeah, he's a dark horse here. Let's see what he got. There's some intrigue there. Yibing Wu is just a crazy ball striker. Takes the ball really, really early, hits it super clean, especially the return of serve. And there's just a lot of intrigue with him because the man has not been able to stay healthy in his career at all. But he finally had this run where he was healthy last year, and he just whipped up the Challenger Tour like nobody's business. So I like to have at least one deep cut in these previews. A couple years back, in 2020, I had it was 2021. In 2021, I had Karatsev. So I like to throw in a Karatsev every year. And this year, I'm pretty sure the lowest ranked player I have as a dark horse is Yibing Wu. Upset alert here is Musetti and Botic van de Zandschulp. Similar things going on here where they're both playing players who struggled last year. Van de Zandschulp is playing Ivashka, who had a lot of health issues and really wasn't good until that U.S. Open 4th round, where he almost beat Sinner. And Lloyd Harris, who also got injured and had a nightmare year. But Harris is kind of on the comeback trail, and he actually has some wins under his belt at the challenger level. So he's built up some momentum, which means something. And he's got really big weapons, a big serve on these, quick Australian Open hard courts. And Ivashka has weapons too, a good first serve, a really bad second serve. But we'll ignore that and talk about how he takes the ball really early and is ruthlessly aggressive off of both wings. So, you have a guy in Musetti and Van de Zandschulp. It's not that I'm down on them. I just think they have dangerous opponents, and I prefer both of them on slower surfaces. So they are both on upset alert. My early popcorn match is Stefanos Tsitsipas versus Quentin Alice. If I did not do that name well, I am sorry. I'm really bad at French names. I'm just bad at them. I think I pronounce, names better than most in tennis media, but I think it's Quentin Alice. Anyway, I think this is dangerous. Very, very, very dangerous. Now, I didn't want to put Alice as a dark horse because I couldn't see him with the fatigue factor and the way he kind of plays his tennis. I don't know. Maybe he should have been a dark horse, but I decided to go with Lehechka and Yibing Wu and put this as early popcorn because while I favorite Tsitsipas, I think this is terrifying for Stefanos, and I will have a close eye on this match. Alice's ace rate to start this year is 24.6%. He's literally hitting aces on a quarter of his points. That would have ranked first on tour if he did that throughout the 2022 season. That is higher than John freaking Isner. I mentioned the only time Stefanos, did I mention this? Maybe I didn't say this. The only time Tsitsipas, since he's gotten good, has been upset at the Australian Open was when he played Milos Raonic in the third round. And in general, when I look at Tsitsipas on a quick hard court that he plays well on, I'm just looking for big servers. And if there's no big servers, I really like Tsitsipas. I really like him. If he can just get into the points, if he can get his return in play, I love his serve plus one game. Alice is that huge server that should just really terrify a Stefanos Tsitsipas fan. And that's an early popcorn match because I think it could be very, very interesting. With that being said, and this is probably why I didn't put this on Upset Alert or Dark Horse, I have Tsitsipas getting out of this quarter, defeating Cam Norrie. Let's kind of get into this a little bit in terms of everything in general. Tsitsipas, after Alice, things aren't so bad. I mean, Ivashka, potentially Van de Zandschulp. Sinner is here, and he has a nice draw and a potential fun one with Musetti if he avoids the upset. But it was really discouraging to see him get injured again at Adelaide 1. And I'm going to have some big predictions for Sinner coming up in the future in 2023. This just doesn't feel like the moment on an ultra quick court. After that injury, I'm just not feeling it right now. Defending quarterfinal points, not that that matters. I don't know. Not going for Sinner after seeing him get injured again. Just not awesome. Not a lot of great unseeded players in this section with Tsitsipas, so I don't really want to talk about anyone else. Coric, Lehechka, round 1. That's an interesting one. That's really the runner-up. I probably should have included that as a popcorn match. But I like Norrie here. For Felix, who is really the favorite to come out of the bottom section, not Norrie. He's got Pospisil in round 1. And I see Pospisil as exactly like the guy who Felix just lost to. Felix just lost to Alexei Popyrin. He's a serve forehand guy. Do I think Pospisil is quite as good as Popyrin right now? No, but Pospisil is another guy who's kind of building some momentum, albeit on the lower levels, and he's got a big game. It's kind of uncomfortable for FAA to open his season. And then Molchan Wawrinka. Molchan's been horrendous, so I think Stan will win that one. Wawrinka early in the year when his body's fresh, I wouldn't want that. I don't think that's comfortable for Felix, although the return, the block returns against Felix, I don't know how that's going to play out for Wawrinka. That's not a great return strategy against FAA. You really want to rush him on that +1. So look, I have FAA getting through, but I don't really trust him. I don't trust him all that much right now outdoors after 2 defeats in a row early at majors. Yeah, the draws weren't great. He lost to Cressy and he lost to Draper. I think he's going to make it to Norrie. Norrie's an interesting one. The head-to-head suggests that Felix actually plays Cam really well. I think Norrie's only beaten him once in recent history. But, I just don't... I like the way Norrie is playing right now, and I could see him getting it to Felix's backhand often in the matchup and having some success. I wouldn't sleep on Norrie. Like, he's just blowing me away at the moment. And you might say, okay, like, what about that thing about Auckland and him playing before? The problem is Norrie just doesn't get tired. And let me be very clear. I think when you go deep the week before a major, it hurts you in your first couple matches. It doesn't hurt you down the road necessarily, especially if you're like Cam Norrie and you're a fitness monster. And Norrie has, Luca Van Asch, French, reciprocal wild card in the first round, Montero or Lestien in the second round. I really like Norrie's draw. So that is that. That is that. I like Tsitsipas to get through. If Tsitsipas gets picked off, I would say Norrie, or if healthy, Sinner. Let us go now to Novak Djokovic's quarter. The top seeds are Djokovic, Rublev, Rune, Carreño Busta, Nick Kyrgios, Alex de Minaur, Dan Evans, and Grigor Dimitrov. My dark horses here. Oh, I only have one. It's Maxime Cressy. I really didn't feel good about anyone in this quarter as far as dark horses are concerned. So I just went with Cressy, who's a wild card and played great in Australia last year. And, these are conditions that Cressy can hold serve a lot in, but I don't feel very strongly about that. That was kind of an I don't know who to pick selection in the dark horse spot. Who does he have? Cressy has Ramos Vignolas. That's a good first round for him. And then potentially Holger Rune, who I will talk about in a moment. My upset alert is Nick Kyrgios. Let's talk about it. I think this is an awful spot for Nick. The biggest thing is that he hasn't been able to play any of the lead-ups, which suggests that he has been, because he's been injured. And as a result, I question how much has he been training the last couple weeks. So that's never good, right? When you pull out back-to-back weeks in the lead-up to this Aussie, I don't love that, and I don't subscribe to the idea that, Gill, like, Nick never trains, so what's the difference this time? No. The reason Nick Kyrgios was able to do what he did last year and not wear down in majors like he always did every other year before then is because he actually got his body ready because he worked harder. So what has the last couple of weeks been like for Kyrgios? That's my first question. But even more significant is the pressure. The attention that's on Nick Kyrgios right now coming into this Australian Open is probably the most it's ever been after the year he had last year. And in his home country, being that, top billing kind of guy, I think there's a lot of stress for Nick Kyrgios here, especially because he cares now. He actually wants to win. So it matters to him, or it matters at least at this point now, how much expectation there is on Nick. And I think he's gone from like a underdog, they're doubting me, they still don't believe in me 2022 to everyone's like, all right, Nick, like, you're supposed to do really well here at this year's Australian Open. Let's see what you got. And then you have the Netflix doc. And I do not like that distraction for Kyrgios because it's all Nick can talk about on social media. He cares deeply about the way he's perceived. And this thing's going to come out and it's a distraction. It's a huge distraction for Nick Kyrgios because he thinks he's going to be the next Daniel Ricciardo. He thinks he's about to become a movie star. I don't love it. I just don't love it. Not to mention the fact that if there's a lingering physical issue, Kyrgios just does not do well when he's in pain on court. He doesn't fight through it well. He goes crazy. He does not fight through pain. I've seen that before. I've seen the movie before, and it's not a great movie for Nick. Early popcorn is Andre Rublev versus Dominic Thiem. That right there is a no-brainer. Let's see how Thiem fares. His only competitive match this year was in qualifying, and he lost real bad to Sun Woo Kwon. I have been impressed with Kwon's play, serving really, really big for a 5'11" guy. It's pretty mind-blowing, but ultimately that's a pretty concerning result, and that's far more important than what Thiem has done in exhibitions. Please, 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 please don't pay attention to exhibitions. or you're just going to get fooled over and over and over again because they don't matter. They have no bearing. And unfortunately, I still see people covering this sport and going off of exhibition results. You're just going to look like a fool every time. I think Rublev gets through that. Rublev usually plays team very, very well. I think, you know, the way he takes a lot of time away from Dominic and hugs the baseline, I think team feels rather suffocated, generally speaking, when he plays Rublev because of all the time that Andre takes away. Quarterfinal prediction. And the intrigue here is really in the top half where you have Rublev, Rune, Kyrgios. I got Djokovic over Andre Rublev. Yeah, that's the pick that most people probably are going to go with Kyrgios or Rune because those guys are more dangerous than Rublev. And I could not agree more. I mean, they are more dangerous than Rublev. Here's what they're not. They're not more reliable than Rublev. They're not more consistent than Rublev. They're not more experienced than Rublev. Andre's a quarterfinal machine. You know, he's been to 6 major quarterfinals. The guy gets there. And do I love his draw? Not really. He's got Team and then Rusevori and then Dan Evans, which always feels like a toss-up match. He's horrible against Dan Evans. It's like, I think, career head-to-head. Maybe 3-3, maybe 4-4, whatever it is, it's tied. But you guys know that I'm down on Nick Kyrgios, upset alert, and then Holger Rune. Look, Rune, I have him getting to the 4th round here. And then I just feel like consistency-wise, Rublev in that kind of slugfest setting, I feel like he can control his errors better than Rune. Ultimately, though, like, I don't know what we're going to see from Holger. I have no idea here. He's a 19-year-old. This is only the 2nd time he's been seeded at a slam, right? Last time he was a 28 seed at the U.S. Open on a losing streak. Nobody was paying any attention to him. Now, like, he's got some real expectation, and he's got to deal with it for the first time. Best of 5. As the number 11 seed, like, without really wins under his belt. It's one thing if you have a lot of expectation on your shoulders, but you have a lot of kind of confidence. You have recent results. And let's be very, very, very clear. Holger Rune does not have that from a month and a half ago, from 6-7 weeks ago. Guys, that's gone. That's not how tennis works. You don't maintain confidence and feeling in tennis from what happened 6 weeks ago. Confidence is about what happened, like, literally on the last shot or yesterday or last week. And then the more and more time goes by, the weaker those sensations of what you felt, the less those things stay with you. So Rune comes in 0-1 in 2023, a 19-year-old top 15 seed for the first time in his career. I don't know what we're going to get from him. So that's why I'm just going with Rublev. The guy who, like, I know what we're going to get. And I know Andre hasn't been good to start the year, but that's why I go with Rublev. I default to Rublev. And I'd be lying if I told you it wasn't a tough decision between those 3, though. Novak wants to see Rublev. Let's talk about Djokovic's draw. Before we move on. I think it's just incredible. I mean, you look at the seeds here, and, well, first you look at the first 2 rounds. Carballes Baena, clay court player with no weapons, who I love, by the way. Massive respect. Tremendous. I even like watching him because he works so hard and is so good at defense on clay. Anyway, Delian, who's also a clay courter, more offensive, big forehand, but a total clay courter, and a backhand that's going to be exposed in this kind of matchup. Or I don't know who the qualifier lucky loser who was placed there. My apologies. I know that it was placed. But then you look at the seeds: Dimitrov, De Minaur, Carreño Busta. There's just the weapons aren't there to trouble Djokovic. You have some players with good fitness and shot tolerance in Demon and PCB, but this isn't the surface for that. If this were a slow hard court, you could see a guy like Carreño Busta being a very tough matchup for Djokovic. But this is too quick. This is about, first serve, offensive forehands, finishing at net. Like, in these areas, there's just nobody who's really going to take it to Novak like Novak can take it to his opponent. So it's a dream draw, especially if it's Rublev in that quarterfinal, which is what I have. It's a really, really great draw for Novak. Casper Ruud, the number 2 seed, with a chance to become world number 1, along with Tsitsipas and Djokovic. Top seeds here are Ruud, Taylor Fritz, Alexander Zverev, Matteo Berrettini, Diego Schwartzman, Roberto Bautista Agut, Miomir Kecmanovic, and Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. Oops, didn't mean to show you guys my face there. My dark horse, Nicolas Jarry and Jan-Lennard Struff. We're going with weapons. We're going with weapons, people. You see the theme here with the dark horses? Like, I think if an unseeded player is going to make some noise and mess some crap up, which is my censored version of what I really wanted to say, it's going to be guys like this who, similar to what I talked about with like a Lloyd Harris of the world, you have an off season now to turn the page. I mean, Yari got suspended for drugs, for performance enhancing drugs, and now he's kind of on the comeback trail, and he really struggled last year, but he's very erratic. He hits the ball huge, though. He makes you uncomfortable. And Struff is look, he's still a powerful player. He's not that old, so it's not like I think Struff is like completely over the hill and he's never going to be a good player again. He's going to get there at some point. So you don't want to play these guys. And draw-wise, Struff. I should like highlight these guys on my draw. I'm sorry. Where the heck are these guys? Oh my God. I'm so dumb. They qualified. I'm looking at a draw where the qualifiers are not in there. And I put 2 qualifiers as my dark horse, and then I can't find them. All right. I mean, guys, I have been working for like 48 hours straight here besides sleep, and I can't wait to get this posted and to vegetate on the couch until Sunday. Man, I can't wait. All right, Yari and Struff. Let's just move on here. Upset alert is Casper Ruud. I watched both of Ruud's matches at United Cup, and maybe I'm a total sucker for overreacting to, 2 matches, first 2 matches of the year. Maybe I'm a total sucker, but I hated how Ruud played against Berrettini and even against Thiago Monteiro. Monteiro, you'll look at the scoreline and it looks like Ruud won comfortably, but I'm telling you that it wasn't because of anything Ruud did. Way too defensive in the court position, not doing enough with his backhand, leaving it in the middle of the court, not returning serve with enough, neutralizing quality. So I watched those 2 matches and I just didn't like what I saw. And now you're looking at Tomas Mahac first round. I guess he's healthy. I thought he got a bad injury at United Cup. I guess he's healthy. Quality young player who had his career best year at the challenger level, who has a big forehand, whose best surface is hard courts by a mile. Jensen Brooksby, don't really need to tell you guys that much about Jensen Brooksby. You know him. He's a funky, weird, and awkward opponent. And I think he's at his best probably beginning of the year when he's fresh physically, and on hard court. And he needs fast surfaces. Awful in slow conditions, Brooksby. So this is quick enough for him too. And he's looked pretty good this week in Auckland. Auckland, right? Yeah, Auckland. Okay. Then you have like Tommy Paul or Alexander Bublik or Davidovich Fokina. I mean, Bublik's got the big serve, although his effort has been atrocious recently. Davidovich Fokina is really talented and has beaten Casper Ruud. Tommy Paul has an awesome backhand. Really good athlete, obviously. And they went 5 sets at the U.S. Open. And you know what? People don't talk about that enough. Tommy Paul, Casper Ruud, they go 5 sets. And why? And Tommy Paul did not lose that match because he was out-tennised. He lost that match because he went 5 sets with Bernabe Zapata Marias in the first round. Then he had to go 5 sets in the second round against Korda, right? And now in his third straight 5-setter, he had nothing left. Really, the reason Tommy Paul lost to Ruud, maybe he would have lost anyway, is because of the Zapata Marias match, which shouldn't have gone 5 sets. So Ruud's got a bad draw. I didn't like his level. There's a lot of pressure. He could be world number 1, and now he's no longer like this hardcore underdog. He made the Miami final, the U.S. Open final, the ATP final. This is where I think we see Ruud just have a letdown. So, upset alert, Casper Ruud. Quarterfinal, Fritz defeats Matteo Berrettini. This is an incredible section for Fritz. Just perfect draw. Kecmanovic has been decent, solid, but against top players, the last time he's looked dangerous against good players was last March, almost a year ago. Well, not quite, but last March, Sunshine Double. Since then, every time he's run up against a top opponent, he's gone away pretty quietly. Schwartzman, I don't know if he's gonna. I mean, he got injured. He can't win a match. It's ugly. Zverev, we don't know what we're gonna get from him. I mean, the Zverev-Schwartzman section is by far the weakest little eighth in the entire draw. Who knows what's gonna happen there? I mean, I guess maybe Zverev comes out of it, but I don't think Zverev's ready to challenge Taylor Fritz right now. That's for sure. And then we have down the road. I think Berrettini, with Ruud getting upset, I feel like Berrettini will be the beneficiary of that. Matteo had just this, stop-start year last year, and it looks like he's going to get back on track. I still think it's the same old thing with Berrettini, where there's a ceiling to how good he can be and how threatening he can be against the top players. But he's very good in best of 5. Love the mental game. Doesn't throw in a lot of terrible matches. Man is reliable. He beat Casper Ruud already on, in essentially these same conditions. So I like Berrettini to play Fritz. Now, Fritz has a 3-0 head-to-head against Berrettini. I don't think it's a coincidence. The reason why it's 3-0 is because all 3 times Fritz and Berrettini have played, it has been when Taylor Fritz... It has been fall of 2021 and forward. And since the fall of 2021, Taylor Fritz has been playing at a top 10 level. And Matteo Berrettini, I don't think has been as good as Taylor Fritz since then. So I don't think it's like a matchup nightmare or anything. I just think Fritz has been better. And Taylor is more mobile from the back of the court. He's got a way better backhand. It makes him better in the neutral baseline rallies. And the gap between Fritz's first serve and Berrettini's first serve, yeah, Matteo's is better. But is it the same? Is that gap as large as the gap that exists between Fritz and Berrettini in rallies? No, I don't think. I don't think it is. I think the gap between the serves is closer than the gap between the ground strokes. And the really, I should say, the neutral baselining. So I like Fritz here, and I like him a lot. I'm pretty confident that Fritz makes the semifinal here, to be completely honest with you guys. That'll be all for the quarter by quarter section of the preview. Let's get to this final weekend. Revealing in 3, 2, 1. Tsitsipas defeats Medvedev in 4. Djokovic takes out Fritz in 4, and Djokovic beats Tsitsipas in 3. I know you guys will want me to dissect these head-to-heads in detail. I'm not going to do it. Because I'm probably wasting my time, because in chances are I'm wrong on these. But it pretty much goes like this. I love the way Tsitsipas has played Medvedev the last 2 times they've played on a hard court. I just think the tactics have been perfect, and the head-to-head has actually looked like it might be skewed towards Steph with his speed and his net rushing, 2 things that traditionally bother Daniil a whole lot. Djokovic over Fritz. I made that 4 sets because I really respect Fritz's compete and competitiveness. I think that mentally in a match like this, he would show up and really be engaged every single set, but he's not on the same level as Novak, and I don't really think I need to go much further than that. And then Djokovic over Tsitsipas. We've seen Novak beat Stefanos 9 times in a row, and if Tsitsipas is going to beat Novak, God, he'll want slower conditions than this. He'll want conditions where he can handle the spot serving of Novak a little bit better, get into a lot of rallies, use his physicality, and hit less backhands, use the runaround more. I mean, man, the way Novak dissects Stefanos, all of that stuff is going to work in these conditions. So Djokovic defeats Tsitsipas in 3 sets. So ultimately, let's finish on this. The way I have this playing out is a dream situation for Djokovic. And look, in all likelihood, it's going to be tougher than this. In all likelihood, I'm going to get this wrong somewhere, and Djokovic is going to have to play a Kyrgios or a Rune. But look, right now, I have him having to face de Minaur, Rublev, Fritz, Tsitsipas. Man, it doesn't get much better than that. And Novak, the way he's looking, revenge on his mind, or it's not revenge, it's just redemption on his mind. Should be dangerous. The hamstring, I'm not really worried about it. Like, at the end of the day, he played that Adelaide final. He is practicing, and I just think he's being very, very cautious, as he should be, and this is something that'll probably go away. It's a little bit sketchy that as soon as he parted ways with his physio, Uli, he's having something like this, which is something that you rarely see from Novak. It's a little sketchy, but at the end of the day, it's probably nothing. So I have Djokovic winning a 10th Australian Open title. Please do hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Please do become a member if you're so inclined. It is a donation of $2 a month to support the channel. Remember, I'm available on Spotify and iTunes, and leave a review on iTunes if you are listening via that platform. It is a huge, huge help. Share this with your friends. I say all of these things because this is an important time to grow the channel right before a major. So those of you who support me, and I appreciate all of you, that is why when you do those things, it is a huge, huge help at a time like this, right before the Australian Open at the beginning of the season. Enjoy, everybody. I'll have plenty of coverage. Looking forward to it. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.